Now, as we've already explained, folks, when somebody is hiring a real estate agent, they are more often than not hiring the brokerage firm and they are working with the sub agent of that firm. But as we've already explained, there is a distinct possibility that they are hiring a sole proprietor, somebody who's operating independently and ergo would not have a firm. And that could change the outlook of the question. You will find, though, that sometimes it's not whether or not it's a sole proprietor, that it's more of how many people are there. Because as I told you very early on in this class, a sole proprietorship can have more than one person, right? Sometimes it's just one operating independently, but if they're big, they can affiliate licensees too. And sometimes a firm could only have one person. And so it's not always only about whether there's a firm or not. It's also sometimes about how many people are there. And you'll get what I mean by that here in a little bit. Now, when we're dealing with this is stuff that's like, it's been around for a while, and it's kind of things that are going to be a little bit on the national, but they're not going to be, at least that third one's not going to be super, super consequential. We're going to introduce these words again later in basic contract law section. And so that's where I kind of told you we're going to go around in circles. I'm giving you miniature lessons first. From a contract law point of view, the word express means stated. Okay? Not like Panda Express where you get Chinese food fast. It's stated. I'd like to express my disappointment. I'd like to express how upset I am. I'd like to express, my emotions. Express is to state, to make you aware, to inform you. And so express could be stated out loud, right? Or it could be written down. Either way, we can agree that you've stated something. So in North Carolina, all of our agency agreements have to be express. Even our oral buyer agency agreements means we have to clearly state the terms. Clearly state the terms. The other way that agency relationships are sometimes formed, which is not legal in North Carolina, is by way of what we call implied agreements. Implied is a fancy way for our actions suggested we were working together. Right? We never said we were, but you said you want to go see houses. I said, great, I'll show you some. You got in the car, I took you to see houses, and we started doing. Our actions suggested, by implication, that we were working together. That is an implied agency agreement. North Carolina does not recognize those. It is prohibited to operate under an implied agreement. All of our agreements have to be expressed, meaning clearly stated, even the oral buyer agency agreements. Now, this last one here, the one that I said, apparent authority, it's not super consequential. Let me just kind of summate it. It says, by performing any act that accepts the conduct of the agent as that of an agent. This is something where you ask somebody to do something, they do it, you accept it, and that creates a relationship of apparent authority. Apparently, they have the authority to act on behalf of you. So if you said something along the lines of, hey, you're a real estate agent, right? If you ever see a good deal, put an offer in on it for me if it doesn't exceed whatever. And I put an offer in on a property for you and I told you about it, you accepted it, that could be an example of apparent authority. Same thing too, if you told, and let's take real estate out of it. If you told somebody, hey, I think I left my windows open at my house. Would you mind going and closing them? Well, you have given them the apparent authority to enter your house. You didn't state they could enter your house, but if you want them to close your windows, it's just you said that they could do it. They did it. You accepted it even without stating that you had this relationship. That's all it is. Now, I want you to understand something, and this is where please disregard anything with an agency or like the NAR stuff point of view in any way, shape, or form. Okay, it says compensation does not determine agency. This is critically important, folks. We are one of the weirdest industries in that regard. Okay, and so let me give you a little bit of, I'm going to give you a really big history lesson on agency in a moment. Not yet, but I'm going to give you a very small one really fast. For a very long time, folks, sellers have paid their listing agents, and they've also been paying the buyer's agents. And that's technically still how it works. And so who pays you never determines your loyalties, which is completely contradictory of like every other industry, right? It'd be like saying that, two football teams playing against each other in the NFL but this team pays the salary of that team's quarterback. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Very often, we as buyer's agents are paid directly by the seller, even though there's a conflict of interest there. Because if we want what's best for the buyer, the seller wants what's best for them, they're paying us to go against them. And that's part of the reason why some of this NAR stuff has blown up, because people are like, well, why? That doesn't make any sense. Why would I pay somebody to go against me? It's just the way it's always worked. I'll give you a little more insight into that in a second. But who the money is coming from does not matter. It's who we have an agency relationship with. Who hired us? Where the money comes from is irrelevant. What you got, Janet?
So I thought this year was they were gonna change that each party pays their agent. The buyer pays it and the seller pays his own.
Janet, look right here. You don't know anything about the NAR stuff and do not apply it on the test.
Okay.
Thank you. Folks, I'm warning you right here, right now, and that's why I've been saying it. Do not listen to anything that you've been hearing about any of the NAR settlements. It will get you screwed up on the test. Just for clarification, it hasn't been changed either. In a lot of instances, sellers are still paying compensation. The only thing that really changed is it's not being offered in the multiple listing service anymore. We have to have a direct paper sign where the listing agent is telling us, is the seller paying us or not? That's it. That is the only thing that's changed. There are some transactions, Janet, that have changed where buyers are paying their agents directly. That's always been an option, though. But it has not changed where it doesn't exist the other way anymore. And that's where I'm telling you, folks, you probably only heard nothing but the extremists who have no idea what they're talking about, because you're not real estate agents, nor are they. So they just know what they've heard through hearsay and social media and all these different things. So for the love of God, anything that doesn't come out of my mouth that you heard from anybody else, you better not apply it on the test. By the way, teaching pre-licensing right now is exceptionally fun because that reason. Ugh. It's not your fault, though, Janet. I'm not picking on you. Like everybody, it's a thing. So here's where we get into what we would call our fiduciary duties, right? Last night we were talking about our clients and our principals, right? The people who hire us and us having this fiduciary relationship. So these are what we say you owe a principal or a client as outlined under what we call the common law of agency. Now listen to this, because this is a test question that sometimes comes up. If I was to ask what 3 things dictate how a real estate broker operates day in and day out, the answer would be the common law of agency, basic contract law, and license laws and commission rules in their respective state. We have to abide by all 3. We have to abide by the common law of agency because we are representing people in an agency relationship. We have to abide by contract law because it's standards of practice for interpretations of legal documents. And then we have to abide by our respective states' license laws and commission rules because they are the authority that grants us our license. So this is, as I said, part of the common law of agency, the fiduciary duties. So when we're dealing with our clients or our principals, we say that we owe them old car. Not a literal old car, but a mnemonic to help you understand the things that we do owe them. Obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting, reasonable skill, and care. So when I say obedience, folks, the first thing that probably comes to mind is a dog, right? You tell it what to do and it listens. Well, that's kind of how real estate is as well. Obedience translates to we as their agent have to follow their lawful, willful instructions. Say that again. We have to follow their lawful, willful instructions. If they say jump, we say how high. If they tell us to break the law, we tell them to stick it. As long as it's not asking us to break the law, we have to do it. So, let me ask you a question. If we were dealing with you as a broker and you go to a listing appointment, and at that listing appointment, you've done what's called a CMA. We'll talk about that later. It's called a comparative market analysis, where you help determine a probable sales price or list price for the home. And so you tell the sellers, you're like, good news, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. I've done a comparative market analysis, and I've decided that an appropriate list price for your home is $525. Okay, and that's what you tell them. And they look at you as sellers and they say, great, $525. Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Listen, I think though, $525 sounds great. I think I'd like to list it for $1.2 million. As a real estate broker representing these sellers, are you going to list their house for $1.2 million? Let me ask you a supplemental question to see if you change your answer. Is it illegal to overprice a house? No. There is no law stating you cannot overprice a house. So it may be just a stupid instruction, but is it a lawful instruction? So I'll ask you again, are you going to do it? Yes. Now, folks, understand the caveat here. Do you have to work with these people? No. So if they're unrealistic, could you say, well, I don't think I'm going to be the best fit for you as an agent and not work with them? Absolutely, you could. You do not have to work with everybody. But if you are going to work with them and represent them and they're going to be your client, you have to follow their lawful, willful instructions. There's nothing illegal about that. Now, of course.
Did you? Hey, Sid?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. In that scenario, and you had already signed a contract, aren't you bound by the contract?
Well, so the contract states the list price on it. And so you wouldn't have signed it yet because that's what we call a pre-listing meeting where we help determine the price. And so until we come to terms, we can't sign it until they tell us what they want to list it for because they make that call, right?
Okay.
Yep.
I forgot the process. Okay.
Yep. So, folks, just to put it in perspective, right? Imagine that like 3 weeks later, after you listed it for $1.2 million, they said, well, I want you to go and put a gun to somebody's head and make them pay me $1.2 million. Do you have to do that? No, because that's illegal. Okay, folks, that's a one-way ticket to jail. All right, now listen, I don't know about you, but I'm too pretty for jail. Okay, I'd be somebody's boyfriend real quick, and I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. All right, pass. Not doing it. All right, and that soap is slippery. Can't risk it. I'm kidding. I'm just making sure y'all awake. Not the soap. So let me help you feel a little bit better about not me going to jail, but the obedience side of things, folks. In a real world, what I would probably say to the seller is, well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I appreciate the fact that you think so highly of your house that it's worth $1.2 million. However, the market really is going to dictate the price that we can get for it. And so I'm happy to list it for $1.2 million. But let's agree that we will drop it by $100,000 every week that you don't get any showings or offers until we get back to the realm of reality around $525,000 where I think you should be. How's that sound, right? That's going to be the probable conversation here. But let me put a real world spin on this obedience piece, folks. I told you earlier that there's these things called material facts. What did we say a material fact was?
Something that you're required to share.
There you go. Something that you're required to share. Folks, a material fact is anything that, if known, could affect a reasonable person's decision to buy, sell, or lease, okay? And so we as real estate brokers always have to disclose them. So let me give you a prime example here. Do you think that if a seller had a roof that leaks, we would consider that a material fact? Yeah. And so if you're the listing agent, your loyalties are to the seller. But because of our legal obligation to disclose material facts, we have to share their roof leaks with buyers, even though they're customers, right? Because we owe material facts disclosures to everybody. So, real world scenario, if a seller says, well, you better not tell anybody my roof leaks, that is not a lawful, willful instruction because we have to. We legally have to share that your roof leaks because it's a material fact, regardless of representation. Does that make sense? So, obedience is following their lawful, willful instructions. Loyalty is putting our clients' needs, wants, and desires above even our own. Okay, so that goes back to that fiduciary piece. Their needs, wants, and desires come above even our own. Folks, here's the thing. Let's say that your client was interested in 3 different homes and they send them to you and you reach out to ask about compensation on these 3 different homes and you find out that these 3 different homes, one is offering you 3% commission as a buyer's agent, one is offering you 2% commission as a buyer's agent, and one is offering you $1 as a buyer's agent. $1. Can you refuse to take your buyer to any of those houses? No. Because their needs, wants, and desires come before our own. We have to look after their best interest above all else. However, let me make you feel a little bit better because some of you are like, wait a second, did I just sign up where I'm really going to make $1 on a transaction? No. But here's what this would look like. When you sign a buyer agency agreement, it says something generic like, here's what I expect to make, and I'm going to seek to get that from the listing firm or the seller first. However, if they're not offering me that and or they're not offering me as much as I expect to make, I will probably look at you to make up the difference. It says that in the buyer agency agreement. And so what will probably happen is you're going to look at the buyer and you say, hey, listen, these 3 houses are great. So excited to take you to see them. However, just to let you know, this one right here is offering $1 in compensation. And I can ask them for more, but if they're not willing to give me more, I'd be looking at you to make up the other $9,999 that I'm supposed to make in this transaction. And what do you think most of the buyers are going to say? We didn't like that house that much anyway. Actually, it's kind of tacky. The neighborhood's not really good. You know, did you put that one on the list, honey? That wasn't you. Yeah, well, you can just take that one off. We don't even like that one that much. Well, let's go look at the other 2, right? Yeah, they skip it. Yeah, that's right. Because there's so much inventory out there where they're being offered compensation, and that's why things haven't changed all that much. It makes it a lot harder to sell a house when nobody's paying any compensation because there's so many other houses where they are. Buyers aren't going to those. What you got, Brooks?
So the loyalty and the obedience part, kind of going back to your earlier example of house being worth $550 and then wanting to put it on the market for 1.2. Wouldn't it be unethical to let them do that, even though you know damn well and damn sure that
it's not going to sell for that?
It's not going to sell. And 2, wouldn't that be a violation of the fiduciary duty to allow that to happen?
Arguably no, because here's the one thing that you have to understand, and this is true of any industry. You can't fix stupid. There are people where we give that. Remember, you're a special agent. We are advisors. They make the decisions. And so we're going to look them in the face. And we're going to say, it's not going to sell for that. It's going to sit on the market. You're going to be wasting your time. But if they elect to do it, that's on them. It's not an ethics thing. It's a wasting your time thing. But I mean, we're going to advise them to the contrary. But if they make the decision, they make the decision, right? Yeah. Folks, we are talking about the fiduciary duties, is what we call them, that we owe our clients. Okay, so obedience, follow their lawful, willful instructions. Loyalty, putting their needs, wants, and desires above our own. Of course, disclosure of the D, right? The disclosure piece. Disclosure basically gets broken down to we've got to tell them anything and everything that would be important for them to make good, adequate decisions. And so let me give you an example of this, folks. If you've listed a home for sale and it's a very popular listing and it has a bunch of showings and you get an offer immediately, and it's a good offer, but there are 20 other agents telling you that they have offers coming your way, do you think those 20 potential offers would probably be information that our clients would need to know to make some good decisions on whether or not they want to take the one we have in hand? Yeah. So disclosure is anything and everything that we can share with them that within the scope of the law to help them make decisions. Now, you're going to see me say this later, but let me make this statement now. We sometimes find out customer confidential information. It's possible that we learn secrets about customers. And so we owe customer confidential information we find out to our clients. But we would never share our clients' confidential information with customers. Does that make sense? If we know secrets about customers, we have to share it with our clients. If we know secrets about our clients, we would never share it with customers. Which leads us into the next one, confidentiality. We keep our clients' secrets secret, unless the law states otherwise. So, of course, material facts would supersede that because the law states we have to disclose material facts. But if I have sellers that are selling because they're going through a nasty divorce, I'm not going to tell the world that, right? Nobody needs to know why they're selling. I'm also not going to tell the world if I have the house listed at $450, but my sellers would be ecstatic with an offer of $425. I'm going to keep that a secret, right? We've got to keep their secret secret. That's that confidentiality piece. So then we've got accounting and reasonable skill and care. Accounting is maintaining documents, getting signatures, handling of monies, things of that nature, right? When we're dealing with due diligence money, earnest money, making sure that we account for it, making sure that we take it to the appropriate place, so on and so forth. And reasonable skill and care is my personal favorite because what it loosely translates to is don't be an idiot. You've got to know what you're doing. So if you deal with something and you screw up royally, then you are in breach of your fiduciary duties because you did not exercise reasonable skill and care and you put your clients at risk. And this also is mirrored in North Carolina license laws and commission rules. And we'll talk more about that later. So that is what we owe clients, right? Old car, obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting, and reasonable skill and care. Now, let me give you an example test question that you could see that directly correlates with this. A listing agent was on a phone call with a buyer's agent and decided to share with the buyer's agent that the sellers would accept less than list price. Which of the following fiduciary duties was the listing agent in violation of? And so they're going to ask you to specifically name one of these things. And that would be which one? There you go. Confidentiality. You shared their secrets, and so you would be in breach of your fiduciary duties. Another example of, a test question could be listing agent shared with the buyers that the seller's roof leaks. Which of the following is a true statement in regard to this disclosure? And it'll have answer choices like, oh, well, seller's agent violated their fiduciary duties. Seller's agent was legally obligated to disclose because it was a material fact, things like that. And you'd say, well, they were legally obligated to disclose because it's a material fact. So these are the style of questions that you'll get kind of on these things. Now, this is another piece that I've seen them thrown in the mix a little bit more lately. And it's been a big topic of conversation in the real world with my, already licensed brokers. Folks, I told you, when we have an agency relationship, you are our client. And when that agency relationship ends, you turn back into a customer. Now, here's the unique thing about that. Yeah, A, B, C, and D, multiple choice on all the test questions, Janet. let's say, folks, that I had a listing with not make on tonight, Araceli. And Araceli hires me to sell her house. And Araceli is selling her house because Araceli is going through a nasty divorce, okay? And Araceli and I have a 3-month listing agreement, and for whatever reason, I can't sell it in those 3 months. And so our listing agreement expires, and Araceli is no longer my client anymore because she doesn't renew with me, and it dies, okay? She's back to being a customer. Everybody good with that statement? Well, folks, now that she's a customer, I wouldn't go out of my way to share her divorce with the rest of the world, okay? We're not vindictive. We don't do that. Even though I know her secrets, I'm not going to do that. However, please understand a very specific thing here. If another buyer calls me later and is interested in that property that was Araceli's that is now listed with a different real estate broker, and I have a buyer agency agreement with this new client, because now we're dealing with a client versus Araceli the customer, I would have to share Araceli's secrets with this new buyer client. Does that make sense? I am never going to go out of my way to hurt her between customer and other customers. I'm not going to share her secrets. But when I have a new client that information benefits, and Araceli is just a customer, I would have to share it with that new client.
You would share her divorce or parts about the property?
That she's going through a divorce.
That'd be a material fact. I mean, it would not. I don't think that would be a material fact to all.
It wouldn't be, and we're going to talk about material facts. So you're onto something here. It wouldn't necessarily be material to everybody, but that information would be material to the buyer because that could give them leverage. Cynthia, you can't share what?
Really necessary you can share, necessary limited information only you can share, not everything, not all the information. Because why you want to share, right?
No, I would share it, folks. Follow along with me here. I told you earlier, we owe customer confidential information to clients, but we would never share client confidential information with customers. Araceli was my client, and when she fired me, she turns back into a customer. I'm not going to share with the rest of the world that has no skin in the game that she's going through divorce. But if Araceli hires Cynthia to list her house, and Savannah hires me to be her buyer's agent, and she wants to put an offer in on that house, I'm going to tell Savannah, hey, listen, I actually had this house listed. I couldn't get it sold. They fired me. They're selling because they're going through a divorce. We could probably get a good deal because I know they're under pressure. Because my loyalties have changed. Araceli is not my person anymore.
But you're saying it's a material fact. So
It's a material fact to Savannah. Because it's something that could change Savannah's outlook in moving forward with that transaction. It could behoove her. There are certain things that are material to clients that are not material to the rest of the world. Now, before you ask Donna, Bree, listen to me. Do not ever answer any test questions with emotion or whether you like it or not. Answer them with what I'm teaching you. Because I can tell you're like, wow, I don't like it. Doesn't matter. It's the way it would work. To the extent, Bree, that this exact question is being taught in the general update put out by the Real Estate Commission. I taught it this morning at 9 a.m. in the real world. This is a real world thing, not just a test thing. Go ahead, Donna.
just to clarify though, it's not a material fact meaning you have to document it anywhere.
Let me go ahead and help y'all out because y'all are...
It's more like material fact is a benefit to your client and it's a little bit of gossip too, right?
It's not gossip. It's leverage.
It's
I mean,
Okay.
sure. Yes, I can understand the emotional aspect of it, but it's leverage because it could be used to benefit them in negotiations. Knowing that means that you know they're under pressure, which means you could probably get a better deal. And we are going for blood for our clients, and we don't care about customers. You've got to understand this line in the sand. Now, to that point, folks, there is sometimes, though, because y'all were so interested in this, let me backtrack. When Araceli hired me to be her agent and she told me about this divorce, there is sometimes that I would have to tell everybody about Araceli's divorce. When we get into material facts, there is a category that's called facts in regard to the ability of your principal to complete the transaction. And so if this divorce is hostile and I'm not sure if the husband's going to sign the paperwork, I have to tell everybody when I list it, the sellers are going through a nasty divorce. We may or may not be able to get clear title on time, depending on whether this spouse will or won't sign. It can become material even when I'm her agent. If it's not material while I'm her agent, though, it would become pertinent and pragmatic to a new client that information would behoove from a negotiation point of view. Folks, you will feel better about this in a moment, because we actually have something where we have to look you in the face. We're supposed to look you in the face and we say, do not tell us your secrets unless you know you're going to hire us. Because if you tell us your secrets and you don't hire us, we are going to rip you a new one. It's part of us as agents. We've got to tell you we will screw you over if you don't hire us. When you hire us, we got you. If you fire us, we don't got you no more. It's just the way it works. Now, if you're that concerned about it, folks, because some of you are feeling some kind of way, have an attorney draft up an NDA, and that would supersede the common law of agency, okay? You can sleep better tonight knowing that you can just get an NDA signed. There you go. Yeah, there you go. That would supersede it, so go ahead. Got a good deal on a house one time the sellers are going through a divorce. Yeah, I mean, it's good leverage, right? I mean, it's a terrible situation. Folks, I'm not kidding, though. I saw in a real estate Facebook group today, literally somebody just sent out 73 mailers to people who, recently filed for divorce. There is a whole business model of real estate agents going after divorcees, okay? I'm just being completely honest with you, all right? Ain't no shame in an agent's game, all right? Yeah. So third parties or customers, folks, I'm telling you, it's borderline laughable. When we talk about clients, we say we owe them old car, all these things that we just explained. When we're talking about customers, we say we owe them honesty and fairness. And aside from that, we owe them material facts. Why? Because we owe material facts disclosure to everybody in the club getting tipsy. Okay? That's how you remember it. Everybody gets material facts disclosure. Everybody in the club getting tipsy. ERRRRY body. Everybody. Clients, customers, lessors, lessees, sellers, buyers, doesn't matter. Everybody gets disclosure of material facts. And of course, we always have to abide by license laws and commission rules. But when I say that we owe customers honesty and fairness, the honesty and fairness we owe them is following the laws and rules and looking them in the face and saying, do not tell me your secrets or I will rip you a new one. That's the honesty and fairness we owe them. And if they tell us their secrets anyway, we're going to rip them a new one. You have to understand the adversarial approach that is the outlook of a real estate transaction. Not hostile, but adversarial. It's literally an absolute. Folks, I'm not even going to use this reference because I've used this reference multiple times, and the vast majority of people in the classes nowadays don't get it, and so I'm just not going to do it. But it's all or nothing, okay? I'll say it, and if you get it, great, and if you don't worry about it. If you're not with us, you're against us. That's it. Okay, that's what it comes down to. And that's a quote from a movie, but I'm not going to tell you which movie because some of you won't get it. But that's how it works. If you're our person, we are for you and only you. Everybody else is our enemy. So, a couple other pieces to supplement these conversations here. When we're dealing with duties to us as the agent from our principal, we have certain things we expect from them. And we're going to talk about these in more detail when we get into the agency agreements. But at the end of the day, we expect them to act in good faith. Do what they say they're going to do, right? Allow the house to be shown, fill out the paperwork, go see houses, and then, of course, pay us the compensation. That's what we expect from them. When we're dealing with sellers to buyers, we're going to get into a really interesting conversation soon. But there is next to no legal obligation from sellers to buyers to disclose anything in North Carolina. The only thing that a seller can be in trouble for in North Carolina is lying, committing fraud, covering things up. But they do not have to disclose next to nothing. We're going to talk about that more. Now, this last piece, liabilities and consequences for breach of contract. We'll get into specific performance later. We're not going to talk about that right now. But the duties that we owe versus the duties that our clients owe to us and to other people, I mean, it all kind of changes. And so we're going to get into that in great depth. Let's talk about the material facts a little bit more, folks, because we keep tiptoeing around it. We keep talking about it. When we're dealing with material facts, it is hands down one of the most important topics of discussion in North Carolina. And so while material facts exist in all states, North Carolina is very particular about them. And you're going to see why in just a minute. But the material facts law is actually just one general statute. It is 93A-6A1 in the North Carolina General Statutes. And what it basically says is that a real estate broker can be subject to disciplinary action if they omit or misrepresent a material fact. And actually, let me show you this really quick, just so you can see how simplistic this is compared to what I'm going to teach you about it. So I showed you this book early on in the course. This is that license law and commission rule book. And I told you it's really broken into 3 sections: license laws, commission rules, and then comments. So if you go and you look at the license laws, there is right here what they call disciplinary action by the commission. Let me zoom in a little bit. 93A-6. So if you go down to 93A-6, you will see A1. Right here. A1. What this basically states, and we're going to talk about a lot of these, so I'll go ahead and just kind of give you this and build on it. The commission has the power to take disciplinary action upon its own initiative or on the complaint of any person. The commission may investigate the actions of any person or entity licensed under this chapter, or any other person or entity who shall assume to act in such capacity, meaning unlicensed brokerage activities. If the commission finds probable cause that a licensee has violated any of the provisions of this chapter, the commission may hold a hearing on the allegations of misconduct. The commission has the power to suspend or revoke at any time a license issued under this provision of this chapter, or to reprimand or censure any licensee if, following a hearing, the commission adjudges the licensee to be guilty of. There are 15 things. And of the license laws and commission rules, I would argue that these 15 are some of the more testable things you could see on the North Carolina portion of the test. But let's just start with this first one where we're currently at. Making any willful or negligent misrepresentation or any willful or negligent omission of a material fact. That's it. That's all it says. It's very vague, if you will. And so when you get into the comments section, it expands on the interpretation of what a material fact is. It expands on the interpretation of what an omission and a misrepresentation are. What you got, Brooks?
All right, so you may be getting to this later. So, hypothetically speaking, you were to sell somebody a house, right? It's a new build on well water. Everything was fine with the house when the new homeowner moved in. 2 years down the road, they discovered radon in their water. Can they still bring you up to the Real Estate Commission Board as willfully withholding or allegedly willfully withholding that there was radon somewhere else in the county?
We're going to get into it in a little bit more detail. What the commission asks is, well, is this something that was patent or patent, depending on how you pronounce it, or was it latent? And so the question that they ask is, would a reasonably prudent broker have known this? If there is evidence that a broker knew about it and didn't disclose it, sure, you could go after them. But if it's something that's like not common knowledge, wouldn't be well known, wouldn't be highly publicized, wouldn't be, conclusive, then they're not going to do anything to the agent. They have to have known or reasonably should have known. And if neither are present, they're not in trouble. I mean, you'd have to have proof that they knew. No. But if you have proof that they knew, yeah, there is no statute of limitations on this. So let me show you the comments section for this, folks. And I told you the comments section just expands on some of these things in more detail. And so if you go and you find this exact one, this book's kind of hard to navigate. You will find that it starts to discuss these categories of material facts that I'm about to teach you, which leads us back into the slides. They have expanded to state that, okay, well, these material facts are things that, if known, right, have to be disclosed because they could affect the reasonable person's decision to buy, sell, or lease. And so the commission has historically said, at minimum, these 4 categories are material facts. Facts about the property itself, facts relating directly to the property, facts relating directly to the ability of the agent's principal to complete the transaction, and any facts known to be of special importance to a party. Okay, these are the categories. So if we start with the first one, folks, and I say facts about the property itself, what do you think I might be talking about?
Title defects.
Say it again.
Title defects.
Title defects, potentially. What else?
Facts about property, would that be like if it's a well, water, sewer?
Yeah. Is it on well? Is it on septic? Is it? Yeah, absolutely. What else?
Any like known damage?
Yeah.
Do you include like when the HVAC was like put, like if it was like you got a new roof in 2022 or like new HVAC in 2024?
That's on the property disclosures for the seller to relay to the general public. Yeah. Roof leaks, disclosures such as lead, damage to the property, leaking roof, structure defects. Yeah, all of these things, folks. So facts about the property itself are the more obvious. The what we call it's spelled patent, right? Like an invention patent. Of course, the counter word is latent, and so depending on who you ask, I think in UK it's pronounced patent, and America we typically pronounce it patent. I really don't care how you pronounce it, but the things that are patent are the things that are easy to discover, we should discover, we have an obligation to discover. So these are things we should look for around the house, like cracks in the foundation, damage to the ceiling, right? Water stains, standing water in crawl spaces, drainage issues, HVAC not working, things about the property itself. All of these would constitute material facts that we would have to disclose. So when I get into the next category, facts that relate directly to the property, this is where your brains may not automatically go. Folks, these is external factors that could affect the desirability, utility, or otherwise of the property. Being near an airport, being near a landfill, being near a train station, new highways coming through, proposed zoning changes. All of these things would potentially be material facts because of noise, odors, values, eminent domain. All of these could affect a reasonable person's decision to buy, sell, or lease because of these external factors. So these are a little bit harder to discover, but there is an expectation for us as real estate brokers to do research and figure these things out to help properly disclose material facts as we are legally obligated to. Because what I'm telling you is sellers don't have to disclose these things in North Carolina. We as real estate brokers do. Always, always, always. So the next category is the one that I just kind of taught you in a roundabout way. It's facts relating to the directly to the ability of your principal to complete the transaction. And so this could be you're in pre-foreclosure. It's a short sale. Your buyer just lost their job. The seller's spouse won't sign. A family member won't sign. The nasty divorce, right, situation that I gave you. Divorce in and of itself is not a material fact, but if there's uncertainty about whether both parties will sign it, it can become one. And then, of course, in the scenario I gave you earlier, it's information that can behoove a buyer if that relationship is ended, which is why it kind of becomes a thing we have to disclose at that point. So I will make a note that being behind on a payment is not automatically a material fact as long as there's enough equity to make it up. But being in pre-foreclosure or in a short sale situation is a material fact. And then the last one is any facts known to be of specific or special importance to your party. Folks, that's literally anything. So if your client says, well, I need to be able to operate a home business. I need to make sure I have a place where I can have my chickens. I need to be able to park my camper or my boat in the yard. I hate cemeteries and I don't want to be within 3 blocks. I need to make sure that the restricted covenants don't prohibit pit bulls. Once they've made it known to us that it's important, we have to help them discover it. So all of these things are considered material facts. And as real estate brokers, we always have to disclose material facts to everybody in the club getting tipsy. Buyers, sellers, lessors, lessees, clients, customers, doesn't matter. You gotta sing like a bird. Now, I think it was earlier this week or last week, Brooks asked the question on, well, are there certain things that we're going to get into, like death in the properties? And I said, yeah, we are going to get to that. Here we go. In North Carolina, there are certain things that we have branded as stigmatized properties. Stigmatized means that they are very clearly undesirable to the general public, but we have clearly stated that they're not material facts and ergo do not have to be disclosed. What falls into this list? Death in a property, natural or murder, criminal activity, haunted houses, sex offenders nearby. None of these are material facts in North Carolina. And when I say it's not material, we as real estate licensees are not legally obligated to disclose this information. Check says haunted house should definitely be material. Well, it's not. Now, here's the thing. If somebody asks, can you share this information with them? Yes, except. There's a very big testable except here. And that is the very end of the second bullet point. You cannot, under any circumstances, share whether somebody has had or died from AIDS or HIV. That is protected under fair housing. Specifically, it is grouped under disability or handicapping conditions. So it would be a violation of fair housing to have that discussion. So we cannot disclose that in any way, shape, or form. However, sex offenders, criminal activity, haunted houses, none of those are protected. You could share it. If somebody wanted to know if somebody died in a property and we know that somebody was murdered, yes, we can share it. If somebody wants to know if the house is haunted, we can share it. All we're saying by saying it's not material is we are not obligated to share it and we are not in trouble if we don't. But we still can't lie in any way, shape, or form.